everybody. My name is Andrea Millender, and I am thrilled to be here today on behalf of Moderator, which lives under the umbrella of Ferrara Candy Company, the #1 manufacturer of sugar candies. As a member of the Moderator brand team, I contribute to the development of Moderator's short and long-term objectives to drive the brand's growth. Moderator is the long-lasting chewy candy that has been filling generations with bold flavors, vibrant colors, and its unique, hard-to-soft chew texture. Beyond our product itself, it is our brand's mission to recognize individuals who align with our brand values of hard work and authenticity, and who are change makers within the Black community. For the past 2 years, we have redefined our brand campaign of Recognize the Chew, which stands for Champion, Hustle, Empower, and Win. Through this campaign, we recognize and celebrate these go-getters who are fueling their progress in their communities. This is Moderator's first year partnering with Black Enterprise, and we are excited to work with them in bringing our Recognize the Chew campaign to life. This includes serving as a proud title sponsor of the Black Men Excel Summit, which aligns perfectly with our mission of celebrating change makers by recognizing their chew. With that being said, we are very excited to begin our sponsor session today, Who's Got Your Back, leveraging the power of sponsorship. Now I'm gonna pass it over to our moderator, Kenneth L. Johnson.
Thank you so very much, Andrea. My name is Kenneth L. Johnson. I'll be your moderator this evening. Thank you all for attending. I hope that we can keep your attention after that great lunch we had. Grab some now laters if you need that pickup for sure. So we're here today to speak about Who's Got Your Back, leveraging the power of sponsorship. I'm extremely excited to be here today as the moderator because I feel like there's always room for everyone to learn. I know that Alfred and the BE team, they've been consistent with saying it's not about as much about what happens here, but it's about what we do with this information when we go back out to our workplaces. So I think this is a great opportunity to get some advice, to get some tips, to get some pointers on how you can leverage the information you receive here to share with your peers and colleagues. So speaking of sharing, I'd like to introduce you to our panel. We have Deonte Thompson, Donald Thompson, and Will Felder. So I'm excited because, well, there's two Thompsons here, so I don't think they're related. No relation?
That's my uncle.
That's your uncle? Yeah, all right, there we go.
Yeah.
That's my older brother.
Yeah,
Look, it could be a sponsor mentor thing, right? It could be, yeah, there we go. So listen, if you don't mind, gentlemen, I'm gonna start with Will. Will, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Originally from South Carolina, reside in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am on the National Account Manager team at Ferrara Candy Company and work with the Now Later brands. Yeah.
My name is Donald Thompson. I am the founder and CEO of the Diversity Movement, and we help corporations and nonprofit membership organizations really implement and execute on a DEI strategy. So from the why to the how to.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Deonte Thompson. I am the Senior Director at Dell Technologies. I've been there for about 21 years now, and over those 21 years, I've had 14 different roles. So I think like in the heart of sponsorship is being able to influence without having that positional power, and I've made a career out of just leveraging my network and figuring out how do I influence.
You know what? I think that's a great place to start, so I appreciate the segue. You know, speaking of influence, so in corporate America, it's very difficult, especially when you're sitting as a Black man in an organization, to navigate the landscape, to incorporate yourself into the culture and be seen without someone in the room championing your causes and for you and your work. So, Deonte, if you don't mind, give us a little insight. You said you've been there for 20 plus years, so I know that you've had people in the room that have basically spoken your name for conversations. So tell us a little bit about that experience. One, how it was received by you, and then how you deliver it to others.
Yeah, good question. For me, sponsorship was like this mysterious thing that people say, like sponsors, you know, you don't choose a sponsor, sponsors choose you. So it's like some, like follow the yellow brick road, Wizard of Oz. and to me, I had to demystify it and make it real because for the longest time, I felt like I was a corporate orphan. Like I'm just wandering around, just hoping I get chosen, somebody choose me to be a sponsor. And that just, for me, it just wasn't a place of power. It wasn't a place of influence. I didn't feel like I had ownership over my career and how I climbed up that career ladder. So I started to focus on what I can control to better position myself in order to get a sponsor. Okay. So the things that I can control is my performance, right? I can control my positioning, right? I can control how I show up every day. And by performance, that's table stakes, because the higher you go up that ladder is everyone's performing. So what's differentiating you, what's making you different? So that's table stakes. So you have to get that. Number two is around the positioning piece. It's how I said 14 different roles. Throughout those 14 different roles, I had to figure out how do I align myself strategically with what's important to the company. So I looked at the P&L, the profit and losses, where are we spending money at, and I strategically took roles around that. The second thing with positioning was ERGs. Right, I joined the ERG. I became a sponsor of an employee resource group because at Dell, there are 18 different executive sponsors just for our Black Networking Alliance. Where else can I go and get that type of exposure to executives who may or may not already know me? There's no place other like that. And so I got my first sponsor through volunteering, through doing other things to demonstrate capability around program management in the ERGs.
Man, let's stay here for a second. So you're speaking of ERGs. For the people in our audience that may not be familiar with the terminology, because not every organization embraces that in their culture, but ERGs and BRGs, can you just give us I guess the overview of what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So employee resource groups are groups internally to the company that you may have common interests. And so you would join an employee resource group if you are interested in, we have one for Black team members, we have one for Hispanic, we have one for women, we have one for Asian, we have one for veterans. Whatever your passion is it helps you to give back in the area of your passion. So most organizations have those employee resource groups, and many of them, because of the diversity of it, they aim to drive some type of business outcomes and help to provide value to the overall business. So that's one of the things that we try to target and aim at Dell, is to make sure that we get everyone involved. I think we have a goal of about 50% of our team members be actively involved in employee resource groups.
Excellent, excellent. You know, I'm going to jump over to Will. I think this is a great time for you to kind of add your experiences to the conversation. So where Deonte has been with his organization for 20 plus years, I know you recently transitioned into a new organization. Yes. So as you came in, how did you find opportunities to seek out sponsors or seek out someone that could kind of bring you up to speed on how things work at your current organization?
Well, when I got here, I had somebody take me under their wing, a lady named by the name of Lena Lewis. I was working with the BRG, Business Resource Group, and came up with an idea. We did a movie night idea. So it was like, to understand Black culture, sometimes it's hard to communicate it. Let's watch a movie that may express it a little better than what I can say. So it was like, okay, that actually sounds like a good idea. I forget which movie we picked first, but she said, okay, that was your idea. Let me bring you in this room so you can pitch it to senior leadership. I was like, well, that's gonna make me nervous. She was like, no, you need to be in that room. You need to pitch this idea. And so then she brought me in that room, and I was in, a few other meetings. I was like, why is she doing this? She was like, now people know who you are. You would have never gotten that opportunity to have the meetings with that group or the C-suite without someone bringing you in, because what you're doing right now as far as your everyday job isn't giving you the opportunity to have those conversations. This did. So what that made me realize, like, you have to lift as you rise. So when you go up, another Black person comes up in that position, right? The flex isn't, I'm the only Black person on the team. The flex is, I was the only Black person on the team. Now it's 3 or 4 of us. Wow. So I rose pretty quickly because someone put me in those rooms.
I want to speak about this. So we're here at BMXL, Black Men Excel. However, to Will's point, your sponsor doesn't have to be the same gender as you. Yeah. They don't even have to be the same color as you, right? So speak to that and how that made you feel just as a novice employee there, and someone reaching out to you, were you resistant to that because it was coming from a different place?
No, I wasn't resistant to it. I was just a little nervous.
Okay.
That's it. You know, when you first go into a company, you don't feel like the imposter syndrome. Yeah. You know, we all have faced that at one point or another. I was just like, hey, I just got here. They don't know me. Why am I in this room? But it was, you know, put your best foot forward.
Yes.
You know, leave an impression. So it felt great, but it also instilled in me, like, I don't just have to be an advocate for other black men. Mm-hmm. I need to use my privilege as a man to advocate for black women as well.
Yes.
So if you're black first, everybody see you as black mm-hmm. first. So as long as they're black, they got black in their last name, I need to advocate for you.
We can appreciate that.
And just to add on to that, 95% of the opportunities that I received through promotion, through different sponsors, came from people who did not look like me. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to kind of get outside your comfort zone and just don't look for a certain type of sponsor. They got to have a certain look, a certain skin, whatever. Because for me, it didn't work out that way. And there was a lot of people that looked like me in positions who could help. So that's very important. Number two, what you said that I really agree with is I believe in just reaping and sowing. I believe what you put out in the atmosphere, it kind of comes back. And so I started to get more opportunities with sponsors when I became a sponsor, when I became an advocate, when I started saying, hey, I have a connection to the C-suite, to executives at the company, but I also, through ERGs, I know all these people that are doing great work, that are hitting home runs and empty ballparks. All they need is that exposure. So how do I get the bridge between, especially during 2020, when you had all the executives, I want to figure out like how I can promote and create an opportunity, but they didn't know what a talent was in the company, right? So I was in a position to be that bridge, and when I started doing that, more opportunities began to open up for me the more I invested in others.
Man, listen, hitting home runs in empty ballparks. Man, you got to take that home with you. You got to take that home with you. Donald, I want to bring you into the conversation. Sure. I'd like to kind of reset the conversation. Okay. Because as I look around the room, and some rooms that I'm in our career coaching practice, people don't understand the difference, or they're not aware of the difference between mentors and sponsors. Can you touch on that a little?
Yeah, I appreciate it very much, and I'm so glad to be here. The one thing I want to say before answering the question is I'm just so full with seeing so many people of color that are doing powerful things in every one of these meetings and rooms. And you all should just be proud and inspired of what we can do and take away from here. But yes. To answer your question, mentorship is more when you think about that coaching, that day-to-day interaction with someone that is giving you points, tips of how to do your current job better, how to help you progress in your career, things that are a little bit more tactical. A sponsor is moving you to an opportunity you don't even know about or understand. A sponsor is someone that has visibility of what company your company is going to buy and how you can change your skill set to take advantage of that next frontier of opportunity that hasn't even happened yet. I'll give you a very quick example. I was very fortunate early in my career. My mentor, his name is Grant Willard, and he fits the model, right? He's a middle-aged white individual and become one of my mentors and best friend and sponsors. But I remember he took me to our lawyer's office when we were having a negotiation on M&A. And I said, I'm in sales. Why are you taking me to this meeting? He said, well, when you're a CEO one day, you're going to need to understand the legal aspects of how you walk and move as a business person. So he put me in a situation where I was a fly on the wall. I was listening, but I started to build relationships with our legal counsel. I started to understand that you can grow through organic growth, but you can also grow a company through M&A. So that's an example in my life of sponsorship of someone putting me in a different position. And then here's the rub. When we have those opportunities, we have to perform. Our responsibility is to not take advantage of those opportunities and halfway do something, but make sure we are not only excellent, but we leave no chance for them to second guess that decision to bring us in that room. And that's what we do for the next person coming up.
I think to piggyback on that, you know who your mentor is. Usually the mentor will tell you, hey, I want to take you under my wing, or you might even ask someone to be your mentor. You don't always know who's sponsoring you. You may not be in the room when your name comes up.
That's right.
But when you enter that room, you leave that impression and you do the best that you can do. Because sometimes that person is sponsoring you, they see something in you that you don't see in yourself. He planted that seed in you saying, hey, you're going to be the CEO, and now your title is CEO.
That's right.
Amazing.
And just to add on to it, I had an aha moment years ago. I know we're talking about mentoring versus sponsorship, but I had an aha moment for sponsorship is there's a double click on that is you have actual sponsors and then you have advocates, right? An advocate is somebody who's going to speak for you on behalf of you, speak your name when you're not in the room. A sponsor is someone who's going to actually create an opportunity for you. He or she is going to create that role, going to make sure that you get into that role. And so I kind of misdiagnosed who I thought was my sponsor because I was frustrated. I'm like, this person is my sponsor, but I feel like things aren't really moving and it's not happening the way that I think it should happen. But what he really was doing was advocating for me. So when he would bring my name up, but there's a whole ecosystem of other things that needed to happen in order for me to actually get that promotion. So that was the aha moment for me. There's a difference between sponsor and advocates.
Man, extremely important. Earlier today, after a session earlier, someone had mentioned that they were getting frustrated about it was seeming stagnant. They didn't know if things were happening for them. And there's so much stuff that happens behind the scenes that you're not privy to, right? So within the framework of that, Will, I want to come to you. How do we help our sponsors help us?
I'm gonna let you answer that one first.
So
As a CEO, I think
So one of the things,
that better than me.
so as a CEO, and I also have the advantage of, I'm an executive coach for a number of CEOs in the C-suite, and it keeps me on the cutting edge of how people are thinking these days. Number one, you want to think about problem, solution, impact, right? People need people that are solving problems and creating impact within the organization. And it doesn't always have to be as big an innovation as you think to start getting you noticed as a problem solver. It's the mindset. It's the way you show up in meetings. Are you a part of the crowd that is looking at all the negative aspects of what is happening? Or are you part of the crowd in that meeting that's saying, look, this isn't going the way we want for our sales numbers this quarter. Here are 3 ideas I want to bring to the table to how to fix it. And you start building your brand one conversation at a time, one meeting at a time. And then the mentors and sponsors will find you out, because here's the secret that we don't fully understand and we don't teach well enough. They need you also. If you're a business leader, you're always on the hunt for the next rising star that either is a part of your team or that you helped put on a team or others. And that's how you create power structure within an organization. Who you place, who you recommend, who you're working with. And so just remember very clearly that every day is interview day, and you don't know who's watching you. And that's one of the things I think was helpful in my career and my come up, if you will.
Love it.
Yeah, and another way that you can help sponsors, I know sponsors look for people who are going to be multipliers of the influence that they pour into you. There's a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, and one of them is the law of influence, right? And in that, he talks about if I am investing, two things into you, I expect for you to return 4 back to me. And it's very interesting because I was in a meeting with the senior level exec, and we asked a question: what do you look for your future leaders and your future leaders? And everybody thought it was going to say things like, you have to have a strong network, you have to perform, he said, no, I look at their legacy. Who have they brought up behind them? Who have they put into position, right? Who have they loaned their influence to, and it's been multiplied in a great way, because that's how he measured overall leadership. It was not through the performance of that individual person, but what has that person done through other people? So if you position yourself to be a multiplier, to add value, an example of that is when I was in the ERGs, I was like, okay, this isn't my day job, but I aspire to go into program management. I want to demonstrate capability. How can I help you, executive sponsor of this recruit pillar? You want me to go to NSB, National Society of Black Engineers, and recruit? All right, I'm going to do that. We're going to program manage that. And I was able to multiply the influence that he gave me.
Wow, so you took me in a totally different direction. I want to speak about going outside of your organization. You're speaking about NSB and networking groups and things of that nature. What's your advice to individuals that may be junior or mid-level in their career and they're looking to expand, but they're not comfortable per se pursuing those opportunities within their organization. They want to get a wider view of what's happening in their space.
Yeah, I think what's extremely important is that everyone has that North Star vision of where they want to be in their career. And then they have to understand the stepping stones of what it takes for them to get there. And those stepping stones could be skill sets, it could be experiences, it's not just positions. And so you look creatively outside of your space of how can I gain more experience in a certain area that's going to help me to be more marketable? How can I gain a certain skill set that's going to help me to be more marketable? And you can do that in very innovative and unique ways, and that's really a differentiator that's going to set you apart. You can do it through ERGs. I've had meetings with senior level execs, just one-on-ones, and it was like, look, I want to add value to you. I've kind of done my research. Here are your strategic initiatives. I'm passionate about this area. Just in my spare time, I want to figure out how can I plug in and help and add value in that way.
You know, people using one-on-ones, and Will, I'm going to come to you in a sec. It's interesting. Alfred Edmond Jr., and I don't know, show of hands if anyone is familiar with the name Black Enterprise Exec, but he speaks to, he always says that he requires that his mentees actually provide him with a reason why he should take them on, right? Mm-hmm. So he puts it back in their court. So as you're doing the one-on-ones or informational interviews, should you be prepared to basically state your case and build your case for sponsorship? Will, would you like to come in on that?
Everybody's looking for that ROI, the why. We all have our full-time job, we have families, some of us volunteer, some of us sit on boards, BRGs take a lot of work, right? Why am I gonna take on something else? Now, it's not a give for get type thing, but it's like, are you as serious? Are you gonna take this as serious as I'm gonna take it? Because when I pour into you, I want you to put in the work. If I put my name on you, I want to be able to go into this room confidently and say, they can do it. Because my mom always said, like, don't embarrass someone else and don't embarrass yourself, right? Like, if somebody put their stamp on you, they're putting their neck on the line for you. So I need to know that you're going to do that work.
Shout out to Mom.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Great advice.
One thing I'll add to that really briefly, a lot of times when people will reach out and want a cup of coffee or mentor, I usually do it before 8 o'clock. And if somebody can't find time early in the morning, then how serious were they about what they wanted my time for? Ooh. Right? Ooh. And I do that because one, I'm an early riser, but two, it's how I can screen without being a jerk about it. Right? I can say, hey, listen, pick any day next week between 7 and 8. Sometimes it's crickets. Right?
Yeah.
Because that simple thing is different to most people. And then some people are like, absolutely, do you want me to bring donuts, coffee, or whatever? Like,
yeah.
And they flip it on you. And then the second thing that I will say in terms of as a mentor, as I had coming up, it does have to benefit both parties for any relationship to last long term. And so it's okay to think about it like that in terms of talking to people within your organization and really understanding what gaps in value do they have, right, that you can support them as well. Because I think if someone's just sowing in me, but I'm not reciprocating, right, that's not as powerful. Kenneth and I, we met today, right? And I've looked at Kenneth's bio. Let me just give you a quick example, and I mean this for real. So while Kenneth was doing a talk earlier, I came in and sat on his session. I took a few pictures in his session in case he needed them for social media. So now, after this conference, when 500 people are asking for his connection, hopefully he'll remember my name, because I tried to do something small to help him without asking. Because that's how you win, if that makes sense. And it's really about winning. Remember that, Kenneth? You remember that?
He got the snaps.
I got you. I'm looking at the hope dealer here, Frank Gray. He sent me like 6 pictures today.
Look,
and I'm like, I got to hold Frank down. I got to do something. Like,
That's right. It's exactly right.
And then I did it for the Adrian that was the moderator earlier. I took a video, took a couple photos, because I want to lock them in. But I mean, I appreciate you. But yeah, that's a great tip. And that 8 in the morning.
That's right.
That's good, yeah.
I never used that one. I'm not an early riser, but I can fake. I can put it out there. Then I say, oh, we got to reschedule. -11. Just to catch them. All right. So listen, as we navigate these corporate hallways and these spaces, and we navigate often unilaterally, like sometimes we're really alone out here just kind of navigating through. Why is it important for us as anybody from an underrepresented group rises to senior level roles within an organization, why is sponsorship even more important at that level? I'm gonna come back to you, Will. Because I know you're a riser. I see what you're doing here. You guys are the sponsor. I've been on the call with you, man. I've been extremely impressed with you. I want to say that. If I could sit out there and take pictures, I would take pictures and send them to you. Thank you. Well, I see your work.
I mean, experience is the best teacher, right? When you've risen in an organization, you know what it took to get there.
That's right.
Someone who's just coming in, they don't know. Breaking an unwritten rule is almost worse than breaking a written rule. And if you're new to that organization, you don't know the unwritten rules. People can do the work, they may not fit the culture. So as a sponsor, it's your job to connect those dots on the culture and the unwritten rules.
That's right.
You know, I was talking to someone and I was like, you know, people coming out of college, they're smart, all smart, they're passionate, they're excited about coming to work and doing a job, but they don't know how to write an email for anything, right? Don't put a smiley face at the end of this right now. We're not there yet, right? so we need to, but you need to be comfortable with them and they need to be comfortable with you. It's like, okay, change that. I had one mentor of mine, he said, well, every time you open an email, you say hi and then the name, hi and then the name. He said, take the hi off. I was like, why? I thought I was being polite. He was like, just say the name. It's a little bit more professional. Just little things like that I didn't know that someone that has that experience does. So then, as I say, lift as you rise. As you're going up, hey, I just told somebody else the same advice you gave me. And well, now I'm senior VP or director. Now you've taken my backfill me. Hey, in this role, these are the things that you need to look for. This is what you need to look out for. But at the same time, like, hey, this person coming up, they're really good. So, I mean, sponsorship, advocacy, mentorship, all those things are important and gets more important as you rise because now your net is cast over more people and you can bring more and more people up.
That's good stuff. Love it. So Donald, let's talk a little bit about tips, strategies, do's, don'ts in regards to sponsorship that the attendees can use to attract sponsors.
So one of the things that stands out to me as I look in organizations I work with is follow up and follow through. There's a lot of people that have conversations that say, you know what, I'm going to reach out to you about XYZ. And they don't do it, and they don't do it in a timely manner. The second thing, and I'm going to piggyback off this that Will said, is the language that you use in your correspondence. When you're emerging in an organization, a lot of times people apologize too much. I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that. Winners don't talk like that. Winners talk about, how can I improve this next time? You're still acknowledging that maybe something needs to be different, right? But the apology creates a weakness element, right? How can I do this better next time is a positive and strength language. And so we need to think about in what we write and what we say and what we talk at those instances, that we're doing that from a position of power and authority with the language you use. And the third thing that I would say, and this is a tip that I'll share with you all that has helped me immensely. If you have an hour with somebody or 30 minutes with someone, I've asked leaders for years, if we finish this meeting 5 minutes early, would you mind if I ask you a few questions about career development, what you're reading, any advice you may have? Sure. Because you didn't ask them for more time. You said, if we get done with the work at hand sooner, can I use this 5 extra minutes for something for me? And I've gotten so much value from that over the 25 years of my career, and it has made me seem, look, and act different. I'm memorable just by being who I am and those small little tips that I do each and every day. And so those are a couple things that I would share so that you can stand out, but you don't have to be like overbearing or inauthentic about it. And those are some things I've used over the years.
No, I know you guys have questions. We're going to have a Q&A after the session. We're probably about 5 minutes away, so please hold tight and hold your questions. I want to go back to Deonte here and just speak about, your thoughts on, from your perspective, with your organization, with Dell, how do you decide who, how, and when to sponsor junior executives coming through the ranks?
Yeah. Can I make one quick? Can I add on?
Let's
to something
detour.
that-
Yes.
In terms of tips, because there's something that I adopted that has helped me tremendously throughout my 21 years at Dell. I had to restructure and reframe what I thought about networking and my network, because it was too much pressure for me. Just like, all right, I have to get a sponsor. How do I influence? Because if a sponsor isn't choosing me, then how do I influence without having that positional power? And I reframed it. I don't know if you guys heard of rapid decision making, but it's RAPID. But you have to understand who recommends your promotion, who provides input into your promotion. The P is for performance. That's up to you to perform.
That's right.
Right? But then it's also who is the decision maker of your promotion and who ultimately approves it. So I go to my manager and I'm like, all right, so I'm trying to get to this level. I need to understand who has the ultimate decision, who decides whether or not I get promoted. Okay, who ultimately has to approve that decision? All right, who's recommending me for promotion? Who are my advocates? Okay, got it. That's my new network. Those are the people who I'm setting up one-on-ones with. Yeah. Those are the people who I am trying to understand, like, how can I add value to you? How can I take on an additional initiatives? How do I get to a point where we have a better relationship so you don't get into the room and they're like, well, who's Deonte? Mm-hmm. Right? And so that I had to change my sponsorship is a part of that, but there's a whole ecosystem that's required in order for you to get promoted and go to that next level. So understand who, know the room, know the audience, whatever position you're in, who recommends it, who approves it, who provides input on it is the I, and who's the ultimate decision maker, and then the P is it's up to you to perform. So when I restructured it and I took that approach, it took less power, it took more power from just the sponsor. I can apply pressure to my sponsor, you're not doing your job, but all these other people talking about me in the meeting, so that might influence you a little bit, right? So that's one of the tools. When we talk about tools, that's helped me significantly. I talked about earlier about having 14 different roles in 21 years at Dell, that I adopted that approach.
Wow, I love it. BM Excel, who's got your back, leveraging the power of sponsorship. We have Deonte Thompson, Donald Thompson, Will Felder here. Listen, I want to speak about this because I think it's really important before we go into the Q&A. Okay. It's imperative that we, as black men, take control over our careers. I think sometimes we get in a position where we look for people to kind of guide us through and to pull us through, maybe without even asking them to, right? Or even seeking them out as a representative. Let's just speak about the things that you've done personally that you believe have added extreme value to your own career and your ability to take control of it. Donald, I'd like to start with you, sir.
I'll extend on the way you framed the question, right? Adding extreme value. When you know that the rules aren't the same for you, right? You have to incorporate that and realize that, and you got to let that go a little bit, right? Because a lot of times we can miss opportunity because we have the scar tissue, right, of things that have happened to us in the past. And then somebody that wants to bless us, somebody that wants to be a part of our growth, right, comes to us, approaches us, is in our space, but we have that little extra chip on our shoulder from something that happened at another company 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And that can get in the way of that person, that potential sponsor or mentor that doesn't look like us, that doesn't know all the right words to say, but they really, really want to help. And so the number one thing I would say is we've got to chase the future, learn from the past, learn from those points of pain, but don't carry them with you in every meeting, right? Because it's too heavy, slow you down, right? The second thing, and I think this is super interesting as we think about the future, right? Control what you can control. Control what you can control. I don't spend a lot of time on the things I can't control. It's too heavy for me. But if I can control the controllables, then I walk different. I look at situations different. I speak different. And then I show up and work different.
Wow, take that in. He gave you tips for now and later. Andrew, you got it?
All right. I see what you did. I saw that.
That's good, good.
I think for me, get out of the box. Every year you have a performance evaluation. Most people is 1 through 10, 1 through 5, whatever. That middle, let's say it's 1 through 5. They'll say 3, you did your job. He's like, well, I did my job well. Yeah, that's what we expect you to do. Expect you to do your job. We expect you to do your job well. You met expectations. Well, I'll be damned. So when you say yes to other things, you're no longer just meeting expectations. I'm over the BRG. I'm on the DNI Council. I'm on the NCA board. Or not for real, but I'm in part of the NCA, but I'm on different things. I do different things. Say yes to those opportunities. Say yes to those volunteer moments. Because when we hired you, we knew you could do the job. That's why we hired you, put you in this position. But what else are you bringing to the table? When I adopted that mindset, like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do this for you, or yes, I'll volunteer for this, or yes, I'll lead this. I'm not only saying yes to the roles, but I'm also saying yes to the opportunities that it'll bring. I'm gonna be in a room with DNI council of people I'll never see. I'll be in the room with a marketing team or a marketing lead that normally I wouldn't have the opportunity to see. And all of those people will see me do great things. And now my name is on these 4 different strategic objectives that we have for the company. It's like, oh, there's Will right there, there's Will right there, there's Will right there. So now at the end of the year, I'm like, I don't wanna see a 3. If it's not a 4 or 5 or whatever that number is, then we have a different conversation because here's a list of all the things that I've done.
That's right.
And on top of that, I succeeded in the role that you hired me to do. So when I took on the mindset of bringing in or allowing more opportunity to come my way, doors opened up.
That's awesome. I love it. It's about brand or be branded, right?
Yep.
You're going to have to create your brand and take the narrative. And that sounds like you're doing a really good job of doing that. Deonte, let's, before we get into Q&A, closing remarks, anything you want to share with the audience that you'd like to drive home before we move on to the Q&A?
For me, it's what I've been saying the whole time. It's all about influence, controlling the things that you can control. You can control how you show up. You can control your preparation. You can control your performance. You can control your positioning. Preparation, performance, positioning. And then, like Will said, I made a career out of saying yes to things that people said no to, as long as it was strategically aligned with where the company was headed. So I became this person, hey, there's this new thing we're doing. Deonte, I want you to go off and do it. Here's a machete, go blaze a trail in the wilderness, get it to a point where you can sustain it, then move on to the next thing. Right, and that got me a lot more visibility. So don't shy away from those opportunities. I call them extra credit assignments because that's what differentiates your brand. That's what differentiates you, and that's what gets you more exposure and increases the overall probability of you getting a sponsor.
Excellent, excellent. We're going to open up the floor for questions. If you have a question, please find your way to the mic in the center aisle. Thank you so very much.
Gentlemen, Leo, is this on?
Jazz, mic on? Flash. We good?
Flash is cool too. We can hear.
Testing.
Let's go.
Yeah. Leo, Dell Technologies with Deonte. Question, relationships with sponsors, mentors, very important. Thoughts about, sometimes as with any relationship, sponsor relationships don't go as you believe or would like them to be. How do you courteously get out of a bad sponsor, well, not even a bad sponsor relationship, but an unproductive sponsor relationship? You may find yourself putting more into it than you're getting out.
I'm going to answer that question in terms of mentoring, because I have a different approach to mentoring. I don't believe in long-term mentors. I actually set up time with people, and I was like, look, I just want 5 sessions with you. I just want 5 meetings. here are the objectives, here's what I want to accomplish, you know, no strings attached. I'm not asking to get married, we just date, right? It's one of those type of things. And so I'll meet them, and then I'll get a good feel for their personality, they'll get a good feel for me, and at the end of those 5 meetings, we make a decision. Is it go, no go? If not, like I only said I wanted 5 meetings, like we went together, you know, and so, and then,
Exactly.
and then that gives that person, it relieves stress from the mentor, from the mentor and from the sponsor, because they get so many different requests. They don't want to commit to those long-term relationships.
I mean, to add to that, I don't chase, I replace.
Right.
And it's like, I don't put a title on it in the beginning. Right? Hey, can I get
Of what the relationship is?
on what the relationship is? Yeah. I'm not gonna ask you, hey, you wanna be my sponsor? Hey, you wanna be a mentor? I need some time to
Yeah.
ask you a couple questions. I need some guidance,
Information gathering.
information gathering.
Yeah.
And then if we organically build a relationship, then let's go from there.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I don't put a title on it.
I like that. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And just to be clear, I've never asked for someone to be my sponsor.
Right. You never asserted that title on them.
Right.
You allowed the
It's-
organic nature to take place.
Well, as a matter of fact, I had a sponsor and didn't even know it.
Right.
I had somebody that's like, hey, yeah, Deonte, let's go, you know, hang out for lunch. I'm like, all right, great. Hey, let's go to Topgolf. Let's go to the movie. It has nothing to do with work, but I always felt like I was being interviewed. Right? So I never really felt comfortable. And for the longest time, this was before sponsorship was such a buzzword. I was like, what is this? This dude's kind of weird. He asked me to do stuff. you know? But it was an interview, right? Because he wanted to see what is your character? What do you like? If we out playing golf, will you cheat? If we out doing, I want to know if I invest in you that you're going to be a multiplier. If I put my name on you, that you're not going to tarnish my brand. Right? So I've never had a conversation of like, will you be my sponsor? It's always mentor that develops into a sponsorship relationship.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Clark Brantley, Vice President and Enterprise Critical Vendor Manager for Northern Trust out of Chicago. I think he stole my question, though. And this question is for Deonte. You mentioned there was a difference between advocate and sponsorship. And my original question, I think he stole it. Where does the mentor fit into that and the importance of all 3? Is the mentor before the advocate or a subset, or how does that work, you know, as far as advocate being a difference from sponsorship, and what is the mentor?
Yeah, I think it's an ecosystem. For me, mentorship prepares me for the next opportunity. And it's building that relationship to help to grow in my skill sets, to help me to maneuver through corporate, to answer certain questions. So it prepares you for that. It's like the Pop Warner coach, right? That's going to get you ready, but actually going to a high school team, it's not the Pop Warner's coach. They're going to get you prepared, but when you get to high school, that sponsor is the one that's going to choose you. I want you on my team. So that's the sponsor. Then advocacy. I don't view advocacy as a person. I view advocacy as an act. I don't care who's speaking in the room for me as long as someone is. So that's what I was talking about earlier, to make sure you understand who's in the room, who are the decision makers, who are providing input. Sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the people providing input. So if you're able to influence them, that is an act of advocacy, and which may help you get closer to the role that you're trying to get. Because ultimately, that's the North Star vision. It's not to get a sponsor. It's I'm trying to go to this place in my career and whatever I need to do in order to get to that North Star vision, however that looks, that's the structure that you have to put in place, and that's the effort you have to put into it.
That's good. Excellent.
Excellent. Well, good evening, fellas, or good afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon.
Already rushing the day ahead. Newman Rochester Jr. with Prudential Financial. This question is, I probably maybe Deonte and Will, only from the standpoint that you have long tenures at your company. Will, you've worked at several. Deonte, you've spent a lot of time navigating, and also lots of nuggets of what to do. I'm writing stuff down back there. I'm like, I like that 7 to 8. I'm going to start using that. But the question I have is, we were able to invite a lot of up-and-coming folks from Prudential that are black men to come to this event so they can see it and be a part of it. My question is, I've worked at 6 different companies before coming to Prudential. I kind of view myself as a first-round draft pick always. At what point do you have the sponsors and the mentors, and you're like, you know what, it's just not working out, right? At what point do you guys say or think about, like, you know what, I need to take my talents somewhere else. I need to take my first-round draft pick status and go to another company. Maybe it's not Dell, maybe it's not where you're at. So just curious as to, and I know I'm putting you on the spot because your company's brought you down here to talk about that, but I think it's important because I think sometimes we spend too long at an organization and the organization's not appreciating us back, and we just need to make some action. So I would love to hear your thoughts and comments on that.
Yeah, for me, when I get to that point, there's two things I look at, and both of them requires a great amount of introspective, right? I'm at this point, I've hit a glass ceiling, this just isn't working out. Either I need to transform my mindset or I need to transform my environment, right? And the worst decisions that I've made in corporate is when I was running from something and not running towards something. And just because you have that discomfort doesn't mean it's time for you to bail. There are cases where it is. Your environment is not going to allow you to thrive. So that's kind of the conversation I always have with myself is transformation is happening. What does it mean? Is there something I need to develop? Is there a skill set? Is there experience? Is it growth? Otherwise, if you're running from something, you're jumping out of the pot into the frying pan, and whatever issues you had over here, you're going to have over there, and they're going to follow you, and you're going to end up doing more damage to your brand because now that brand is, you're starting to create a brand for yourself of, hey, if it doesn't work out, they're bailing.
And that's the ownership piece, right?
That's the ownership, absolutely.
I heard some advice from Carolyn Wanga. She said, if you don't like your environment, change your environment, not you. And a lot of times we become stagnant or may not like our environment. It's like, well, if I could just act like this, or if I could just be like that, you know. Sometimes it is the environment, and you have to find someplace else. Because you said you see yourself, I don't know where he went. Did he?
Yeah, he's back.
Oh, he's over there he is. He changed his mind.
LeBron James, can you come back? Can you stand up, LeBron? He's the #1 pick.
LeBron went to South Beach.
He got right up under the lights. So I couldn't see anything. So it's like, you see yourself as a first-round draft pick. You're not going to see yourself as anything else than a first-round draft pick, right? So if your environment doesn't see you as a first-round draft pick, go somewhere else that sees you as a first-round draft pick and treats you that way. You know, I mean, when I got into the workforce, I graduated college 07. 08, 09 was the layoff time of I mean, everybody was getting laid off, right? It let me know, and it let a lot of my peers in this generation know, companies will make decisions that are best for the company, not best for your family, for their company. So you need to make the decision, or we all need to make the decisions that's best for ourselves and show loyalty to us, yourself first, show loyalty to your family, because if you aren't happy, no one around you or your family isn't happy because they can feel that.
That's right. Yes. And can I just say one more thing you just made? So when you're growing, you're not going to always feel like LeBron James. When I was in 5th grade, I was a big man on campus. When I went to 6th grade to middle school, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm like a fish out of water. When I was in 8th grade, I was a big man on campus. When I went to high school and I was a freshman, a 9th grader, I'm like, well, I don't know if I can do this. I was a senior, I was a big man on campus. When I went to college, not so much. Senior in college, big man on campus. Corporate America, not so much. As you grow throughout your career, you're going to have positions where you're going to be uncomfortable, and you're not going to always feel like LeBron James. You know, you want to keep that mindset, that Mamba mentality. Yeah, you want to keep that, but you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and knowing that's just a part of the process, and you got to figure out how to maneuver through that.
Love it. I love the part of the process, and I love just finding your true north, right? It's got to believe in yourself. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
And you know, in today's world, we're all a business of one. Like, whether you believe it or not, you have to operate like you're your own business. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you keep that mindset, you'll start finding ways and opportunities to position yourself for success as well. No matter what's going on around you, you'll figure that out because you're operating as a business of one. So please keep that in mind. Next question, please.
Awesome. First of all, thank you all for doing this. This is really great.
Thank you.
My question is actually for Donald, because you said something that stood out to me, and you were talking about how instead of using, speaking from the standpoint of a CEO, CFO, of a person of authority, how important it is not to, to use words that take your authority down. Mm-hmm. And, in this world that we live in where everybody is telling the boss that you got to be more, you got to speak to people on their level and you got to do that and communicate. So talk, if you don't mind, talk more about some of the things that we can do as CEOs or people in authority to make sure that we are communicating and being relatable while at the same time maintaining that authority, that position of authority.
I understand exactly what you mean. Really, the challenge to restate the question a little bit is how do you manage with empathy while you're balancing the economic constraints that you have to run the business by? And it's really tough right now because everybody's sensitive about the words you use, the phrases you use. And quite frankly, and I talked to this to my team and others that I lead, leaders aren't telling people the truth anymore. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're only finding out the truth when they get laid off. You're like, why are you laying me off? I'm a top performer. Maybe we need to maybe we need to keep our retention numbers up, and maybe you don't take feedback real good, so maybe I didn't give you any. And so the reality is this: I ask more questions. So when something is not going quite right, if we all heard about the sandwich method, say something good, say something a little bit coaching, say something good, stop doing that, right? Because everybody focuses on the thing that's negative. So therefore, it doesn't even matter the first two things. What I found is when I need to give feedback to grow to a standard, how I'm willing to help you meet that standard as a leader is the crux of whether we're having a positive dialogue or not. Here's where we have a gap between what we're doing as a team, operative word we, and what we need to correct. Here's a couple things that we need to do different. How can I help you? Where did we go off track to where maybe I didn't align what you need with the resources? What am I doing as a leader? And we put that together in the package. It doesn't absolve that individual for their part, but then I become a part of the solution with them, and now we're leaving with the prospect of a win, not just the negative situation. The second thing that is most important as a leader when you're chatting with folks, and this is something in the diversity movement, we work with hundreds of companies, and DEI is really leadership development. Right? You use diversity, equity, inclusion, but it's really how do you build and grow a great workplace. But one of the corporations we found, they changed this small thing in their annual reviews. Instead of going in with the ratings first and all the different things they had to talk about, they had a career mapping conversation with the employee first. What do you want out of this company? What do you want as your goals? Tell me how your family's doing. How does that align with work? And that first 10 to 15 minutes then allowed the manager and the leader to now understand the personal motivation of the individual. So now when that manager said, in order for you to achieve that 15% raise that you want next year, here's some things we need to work on together to get you here. It's the same data that's being discussed, but the dialogue started from a point of helpfulness, from a point of prosperity, from a point of growth. And so as leaders, we have to change the negative tone that we use. Don't have to change the standard. We just have to be helpful in helping people to meet the standard.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Donald, I have to get that book, man. You were brilliant, my friend.
I appreciate
What's the name of the book?
And I appreciate the opportunity. It is Underestimated, The Journey of a CEO. And so it's something that has just come out. In fact, the launch of the book was yesterday. And our publisher sent me like some cookies and stuff, and thank you for that space. I really appreciate it. The reason that we wrote the book and a team helped me write it and different things is I want to create that inspiration that if you don't have a college degree, if you don't have a certain pedigree, right, you can still take the skills that you do have and chase the future that you do want. And a lot of times we focus on the things that we don't versus the things we will do. And I wanted to create an environment through this book to give people that perspective. Let's talk about what we can do.
Thank you.
That's my uncle. That's Unc right there.
Next question, please. No, what I apologize. We're running a little long, but I got permission from Roberta to extend just a little. So if someone else has a question, please feel free to come up. But next question, sir.
Perfect. Thanks so much for the panel. Great conversation today. Corey Wilson, VP Diversity and Inclusion for Prudential Financial. And during the conversation, you mentioned your sponsor doesn't have to look like you, and I've certainly experienced that throughout my career as well. So as I'm mentoring folks and trying to be sponsor for others, I'm curious from the panel how you handle a black sponsor versus a white sponsor. So generally, the black sponsor is more junior to the white sponsor, and generally the white sponsor will go and ask the black sponsor, "What do you think about Corey? Right? How is he as a worker? How is he with his skill sets?" Right? So just curious if you've had a different approach when engaging the black sponsor versus the white sponsor, or if you've even noticed a difference.
I'm gonna speak on being sponsored versus a sponsor. I can open up more to you as a black man. You know what I'm feeling on the inside. You have empathy for what I'm going through. If I'm talking to a white sponsor, I'm not opening up as much because you may try to understand, but you don't really know what I'm talking about. So from a professional level, I'm gonna have the same conversation because I feel like if I don't, I'm disrespecting you. That means I think less of you as a black man than I think of this white man just because of the color of your skin. So we're gonna have the same professional conversation, but that personal connection I am gonna have with you versus him.
Yep, agree. And just to add on to that, for me, the only thing that's different is the relationship, right? I've figured out how to be my authentic self, but still be all things to all people.
Yeah.
So you have to know your subject. This person is different. Forget colors. Personality-wise, likes, dislikes. A big part of sponsorship is building that relationship.
That's right.
And you have to figure out, how do I connect to this person and build that trust so that they will be a sponsor for me. And so I don't go into any situation the same. You did your research before you came here. I do my research before every meeting I have with like one-on-ones.
That's right.
I'm on their LinkedIn profile.
That's right.
I'm trying to understand, because in order for you to influence, you have to understand needs, desires, like the whole what's in it for me, how can I add value to you? So that's the only thing for me that's different. I agree with everything you just said, it's just the relationship piece and how you approach it.
The thing I would add there, try to keep things as simple as possible for yourself. Knowing what you want out of any particular relationship is going to give you the freedom to, wait a minute, we don't have to be best friends, right? And that takes a whole lot of pressure off right there. What we have to do is understand competencies and portfolio and things that we got to get done. And then when we keep it there, then what has the opportunity to bloom is that professional respect that will then allow a lot of other relationship things to happen. I have better relationships with people that I respect than people that I don't respect.
Sure.
So I'm chasing first that business level respect, independent of anything else that I'm driving for, because then I can build whether a relationship will happen more naturally. And it takes pressure off me, right? And when I started in my career, my first real professional journey was in the technology sales in the software space. And so I was selling to big companies. And so one of the things that we haven't really touched on is our relationships as professionals with partners and other folks outside of our company, but companies that are strategic to our company, right? And that is equally as important in finding champions in those kinds of partnerships, because those partners also have the ability to promote who they like working with. Inside your business.
That's good.
There you go.
Right? And so I made it my personal mission to make sure I developed relationships with partner companies or vendors or suppliers, because your leaders, if they're smart, aren't going to just ask internal about you. They're going to ask external about who you deal with, and that's another way that you can gain and grow credibility.
All great points. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the question.
All right, Beza with Dell, and Will, you talked about as you rise, you lift, and expanding the pool. And of course, I heard Ray early on talking about, before he leaves a position, you want to make sure that he brings up the same kind of person. However, my worry is that what happens when the pool is dry? What if there's nobody? looking at the black unemployment rate is skyrocketing. You got all kinds of certification and degree. You have high chance of not getting a job as a black person, and even a lot of high-profile research indicate that black-sounding names are discriminated. And in the recent days, discrimination is delegated to artificial intelligence. The automated tracking system makes sure that it cancels out some individuals who are not desirable. So getting worried for the future, what would be your role to influence recruitment process, employment, so that there's no systemic discrimination and the right number of black people are represented in different industries? I speak from cybersecurity, where everybody talks about there is so much shortage of experts. But we did a research where we sent out certified people and we don't get interviews. So what would be your role in this position to influence recruitment so that really qualified people come into the job market? Let alone the board, they're struggling to get the job. So we need your help working on that, and I want to hear the effort in that area.
No,
You know what?
that's a great question.
Yeah, if you don't mind, let me jump in here. And the reason I'm jumping in, we have some esteemed panelists, but I have a 21-year career in diversity recruitment. So this is kind of a lane, and I understand applicant tracking systems, and I understand the hiring process and talent acquisition. And honestly, the way to circumvent some of the unconscious bias, the legitimate bias in that process, is to network like crazy, right? Network and position yourself as a subject matter expert in the space. And I don't know if that's through I was looking at some of my colleagues, some of the panelists' profiles, and I know Donald he writes a lot of content, and he's positioned himself, right? There's a return on investment in anything. And I do, like, discrimination exists. Discrimination is hiring, right? You're discriminating against something. Maybe it's lack of experience, right? Maybe it's a degree or versus not having a degree, whatever it is. But the way to circumvent some of that is to continue to build your brand as someone in the space that is doing amazing things, but also to network with the hiring managers, decision makers, influencers, to position yourself as a candidate. And we get it all the time. Now, post George Floyd, we do have a lot of companies that really didn't deal with us before come to us and say, hey, look, we need your help, right? So there are recruiters like myself who specifically work with people like yourself that may be having some challenges getting on the radar of companies. Well, we're here for you. We're here to help and support you in that way. But the one thing that you can do is take control of that situation by advocating for yourself and positioning yourself in front of people that are making those decisions.
Yeah. Well, to build on that, one thing I noticed you said, what that took me to was pipeline, company pipeline, right? And if we can be honest, sometimes companies don't care about who's coming next. They need to fill that body. They really don't care if it's a black man that's gonna fill that position. So what am I doing? I'm going to make them care. Okay, well, we noticed the last 10, at my company, we now have metrics that say, okay, how many people were hired? How many people that we hired were women, black men, black women, right? Okay, I don't see any here. Let me see a list of candidates. Let me see the resumes of the list of candidates. I don't see any black people here. That's the problem. So what I am doing is going in and saying, okay, well, we need to look at these metrics now. Right. We have the data. We have the metrics. Let's look at them. Why haven't we hired a black person in the last 15 hires? That's a problem. And we're not going to embarrass you, call you out, but we are going to ask the uncomfortable questions. Hey, well, why didn't we see 1 in 15? We couldn't find them. Where'd you look? Did you go to the HBCU? Did you go to some of these black networks? Let me see your LinkedIn. Like, who did you look to on LinkedIn? Right. You actually have to now ask those questions. You don't have to be accused, or you're not doing this. Just a simple question. Where'd you look? Right? Then next time when you see the next 15 applicants, oh, I bet you a black person be in that one. Yeah.
So just to,
If there's any recruiters here, ignore what he said, because that's what we do. That's the secret sauce. He just told all the secrets. Ignore all of that. He just told-
and just to punctuate what you said, I don't, that's one of my pet peeves when people say there's a lack of talent, there's a lack of the pipeline, I can't find good people. It's not a lack of talent, it's a lack of innovation, and it's a lack of effort.
That's right.
Period. Period.
And listen, recruiters, and I'm sorry, I don't want to offend any corporate recruiters here. Recruiters can be lazy. These applicant tracking systems and these online job boards, they're just sitting back waiting for resumes to come to them. They're not actively pursuing talent anymore. And I think that presents some challenges. And it prevents people from going to alternate pools to identify talent, because they're just sitting back saying, hey, we posted on blackemployees.com. We didn't get anybody. Next, we're going to go back to this PWI that we get people from.
Yep.
And that happens frequently, and you know, and it's real. So I understand your pain in that. It's real. You're not making that up.
No, not
but
at
you
all.
have to take control of that by literally going on LinkedIn and reaching out to individuals at that organization that you're attracted to and saying, hey, listen, I'd love to have an informational interview. I'd love to share a conversation with you. Not about, don't ask for the job at that point, but just ask what it takes for someone to be successful in exploring opportunities there.
Makes sense.
And they'll dig into your profile, trust me, and they'll start looking, and hopefully they have somebody that's holding them accountable for metrics, and you just fell on their lap. They think that you were strategic and put yourself on their lap.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you.
I got a non-profit for blacks in diversity in cybersecurity. I would reach out to all of you and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Awesome.
Great job, guys. I just want to add something that was pursuant to this last gentleman's question and what Ray Robertson said earlier. Everybody who knows me knows I'm really passionate about mentorship, but it's not because I'm some super altruistic dude that just wants to look out for other people, even though I am that guy. What I found out was that if you want to be able to replace yourself, you got to be your own talent scout. You know, when you talk about finding somebody that could take my place, I actively cultivate people who could take my place in different spaces. So when they say, we can't find anybody, I'm like, oh, I'm glad you said that. I got 5 people, I'm going to refer them for interviews. So each of us should be constantly looking at the talent around us, people we work with, people we meet, maybe on our staffs or on the teams of other leaders on the companies, to constantly keep a list. Who really gets it done? Who's really, really good in my organization or outside my organization? So when opportunities arise, you don't have to wait for the recruiter to either take initiative or not take initiative. You can say, not only am I going to ask the question, where did you look?
Yep.
You could say, and by the way, I've been looking, I got 5 people in my back pocket. Let me
That's
just
right.
give you those to look at. We all should be looking out for each other. That's one of the main reasons we do this event, so that we can't say, oh, I don't know anybody. All of us should know somebody for every opportunity we might cross.
You know what? I think that's a great place to close. Alfred Edmond Jr., Black Enterprise, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank all of you for attending and hanging out with us. I know we ran long, but that's just because we get excited about the topic. Who's Got Your Back? Leveraging the Power of Sponsorship, hosted by Now and Later. I'd like to thank my panelists for just delivering and bringing it home today. Will Felder, Donald Thompson, Deonte Thompson. And also, I must thank Roberta and Jazz in the back for really holding us down and making sure that everything was great. But most importantly, I'd like to thank you for attending and using this information and taking it back to your workplace and making that workplace better. This is why we're here today. So thank you so very much. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. On behalf of Black Enterprise and BMXL, we thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good job, man.
Thank you.
Good stuff,
Thank
man.
you.